You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live. Hello, welcome back to the Claret and Blue podcast on this Wednesday morning / breakfast club. I've got a half-eaten bowl of Weetabix in front of me, which I'm going to finish on mute in a second when Matt's speaking. My name is Dan Roberts and I'm joined by Matt Kendrick in that snazzy jacket from, what is that, 95, 96, something like that?
I think it probably is. So the people in the comments will be able to tell us better. I think it's 95-ish.
A6, yeah. Is that Muller as well?
It's got a Muller, yeah. It's got Muller branding across the back, which I could actually do with the Muller yogurt now because I've not had any breakfast. How many Weetabix do you have?
I've had 2 this morning. I do have 3 sometimes. Is that too many?
Well, I'm supposed to be on Slimming World, aren't I? So I'm a Weetabix man at the moment. I have 2, but it doesn't seem enough.
Do you have sugar?
No.
I used to like a bit of sprinkling sugar, but I've cut that out now. I've also got black coffee in front of me. Red.
Skimmed.
Whatever that's called. Skimmed.
Skimmed, yeah. That's very good. I have Bob, which is best of both, which is the fat content of skimmed, but the taste of semi-skimmed.
I've never even heard that before.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Like I said, it is breakfast club, basically. It's been a weird 24 hours for me. I've been all over the place and I slept at my mum and dad's last night. So I feel like I've not had a great night's sleep either. So I'm a little bit all over the place. I've got a handful of kind of topics in front of me, but this could go a little bit anywhere. So for those of you who are watching live on Facebook and YouTube, if you got any comments to kind of keep the agenda flowing, that would be quite handy. We'll start where we always do, though. First of all, actually, no, we won't. Kind of give me your summary of the game first in kind of at least 60 seconds so I can finish this last Weetabix.
Right. Oh, cocky, no pressure now to sum up a game so you can finish your Weetabix. I thought Villa's intensity was good. I thought Villa Park was really, really up for it. I thought Gerrard had got his team really, really up for it, to the extent that I actually dared to believe that we were going to get a point and possibly more. The early goal was obviously a massive boost, and I think if we could have just held them off a little bit longer and invited more, cranked up the pressure on them, I think we could have gone on and got something more out of it. But it followed a familiar script, didn't it? The longer the game went on, and the more wasteful we were. That they're fighting on 4 fronts because they're not wasteful like that. They're a lot more clinical, and eventually it came. It's so frustrating because we did have the better of the chances. We'll touch on this later. Danny Ings should have had a hat-trick potentially. We're going to touch on John Moss as well in more detail later. I don't think John Moss cost Aston Villa the game, if I'm being honest. I think Liverpool probably would have gone and won it anyway, even if they've only had 11 players. But yeah, it was just a really, really frustrating game in the sense that, I think we deserved something from the match. The plus for me, and it's the challenge for the last 2 home games and going into next season, is that atmosphere. I just thought it was banging, and I love being under Villa Park under the floodlights like that when it's rocking. So yeah, really, really frustrating, but lots of encouraging signs, and a little bit of hope for the final 3 games of the season. Lovely stuff. That was plenty of time to finish my Weetabix, so thank you for that and a good summary. And Dal says, English, mate, the way I was rattling on there.
Dal says, Dan, your thoughts on fruit on Weetabix? Certainly no for me. Yeah, no for me. Banana and stuff and berries and all that. Nah, not for me. Just plain. Basically, I'll have it with basically no milk either, so it's like eating cardboard, which I quite enjoy it. Anyway, back to the football. I actually quite enjoyed last night, which is weird, really, because I never like Villa losing games, obviously. Like you said, the atmosphere was good. Going ahead early was good. If you do hold on to that for slightly more than 3 minutes, I think it does maybe change things up a little bit. But there's plenty of kind of encouraging signs, wasn't there, throughout, I think, as much as, you've lost the game to one of the best in the league. We've given them a good game, and it could be one of those ones that you turn up to Villa Park and you're 3-0 down after 20 minutes or something. So I don't know, it's just that I'm glad that didn't happen. But it felt like a pretty decent performance, I thought.
Yeah, I think, we're all forever going to regret not being inside the stadium for that 7-2, aren't we? And I think it had got a little bit of the hallmarks of when we played them at Villa Park a couple of years ago and we scored early on. I know they left their comeback very late that day, but we produced a really, really battling performance and lost 2-1. And that man Mane scored again. I mean, I'd be interested to look at the stats. Stats fans, I mean, obviously we've not done our prep, but has he ever played against Villa and not scored? I don't think he
does
played
feel
in
like he scores every
7-2.
game.
Obviously got that trick for Southampton, didn't he? Yeah, he's the kind of scourge of Villa. I saw Robbie Fowler doing some media work down by the tunnel, during the course of the game, and he was the same. There's many a hand gesture I've fired in his direction during my younger days. He used to score every time he played against us, and I think Mane's taken over that mantle from him. But yeah, there were plenty of positives for Villa. The big thing is, Gerrard and his team can get up for games like that and probably produced as close to a consistent 90-minute performance as we've seen for the most part under Gerrard. If they can do that against, one of the best teams in the world, how does he conjure that up, with respect to Crystal Palace at the weekend and Burnley and some of the lesser lights in the division? Because when Villa can play at that intensity, if they can match a side that's going for the quadruple for most of the game with that intensity, think what they could do against lesser sides. So that's the real conundrum for me.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? And that's probably part of being a mid-table side. And I think Gerrard has called us streaky a few times, that we kind of win a couple, then lose a couple, win a couple, lose 5 in a row, win a couple. And if you kind of cut that out and can shore yourselves up a little bit, you think if we can do that against Liverpool, and I know we've not got any points out of it, but you kind of think we should be able to beat Palace and Burnley then. I know it doesn't work like that you kind of play well against a good side, so you come up against somebody lesser. But if the atmosphere is as good as it was yesterday against Palace, and I mean, it does help if the game goes your way as well. If you do score early against Palace on Saturday, I think you win that game. And then Burnley is again a bit of a banana skin after what they're like. But we only beat them 3-1 like 5 days ago, or whatever it was. So you think if you do that against Liverpool, those two should be fairly straightforward. So why can't it be like that?
Just intensity, isn't it? It's intensity and intent. If Villa come out and want to take the game to the opposition, which it's an age-old cliche, but the onus is on them to do it at Villa Park, regardless of the opponents. Then that sets the tone. That lifts the crowd. The crowd feed off. It's it's easy to say. It's harder to achieve, but if Villa, and with the energy and the pace that they should have in parts of that team, they just need it's just a relentlessness, really. And we've seen too many kind of half-hearted performances, whether it's been intensity for 45 minutes and not the second 45, or vice versa, or just when Villa are trying to kind of build momentum, just sloppy errors that changes the momentum of the game. These are the things that Gerrard needs to address, and the big question for him over the summer months is whether he addresses that with a better quality of players, which I think will be half of the battle, but also how he addresses that with the remaining players who have been brought in to consolidate with Aston Villa to get Villa halfway up the Premier League. Does he see enough of those, that winning mentality, that relentlessness, to coach that level all the time? I just think we went through a run of losing games. It's followed a familiar theme, hasn't it? We've won. We've put several wins together. We've put several defeats together. We've now come out of that losing run with. We beat Norwich, we beat Burnley. I've lost my memory. Who did we get a point against?
We drew to Leicester, 0-0.
We drew to Leicester. I think you can put that one against Liverpool down as a blip. Let's finish this season with a real statement of intent now, and get us all kind of paying happily for our season tickets, and refreshing teletext every day to see who we're signing over the summer, and phoning club call. So I'm still feeling a bit retro, mate. That's why I'm going back to these former references.
You'd like to think now that there's nothing to suggest that Villa don't get 6 points in the last 2 home games and give Man City a right good go on the last day. Whether that means that we lose or we get battered or whatever, you at least give them a game. And I think it was after the Arsenal game, I think we spoke, and we just said we kind of sat off them and let them play and let them dictate it. Don't want to see that against anybody. And I felt like that's what it could have been like with Liverpool last night, that we kind of give them way too much respect and let them do their own thing. I want us to see and go and play without fear against anybody. So there's nothing in my mind to suggest that we don't end the season with at least 6 points from those last 3.
Well, now's the time to go and play without fear, really,
yeah.
because there's not a great deal resting on it. You know, Villa can still have an impact at both ends of the table. Why we sit comfortably in mid-table? I managed to blag myself a ticket for Man City away, and it's my first away game because I'm a fair weather fan. It's my first away game since I think Bristol City under Bruce. A few years ago on a Friday night, so I'm hoping Villa can finish with a proper flourish. To be honest, 9 points from 9 would be nice.
Yeah, of course. There's a comment from Matt Smith who says Mane's got 9 goals in 10 appearances versus Villa, and we've not done any fact checking, so I don't know whether that's true or not. But let's just assume
sounds
it
about
is
right,
because,
doesn't it?
Yes, like you say, it sounds right. Before we get into the Villa side of things, let's just get the John Moss stuff out of the way because it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Quite literally, with the size of him. Oh, that's offensive. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be talking about people's weight
on this podcast.
No, I mean, look at me. But he doesn't look fit enough to be a referee, does he? I know the chant is "You're not fit to referee," but literally, he isn't. He doesn't look anywhere near the pace of the play. He's 51. He's nowhere near it. And that, like you said earlier, that hasn't cost us the game. But Christ, he was poor.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last night, it's like giving your nan a virtual reality headset. That's what I likened it to. Listen, we know he's retiring. We know he's on the way. Probably, probably got a few more seasons out of him than really should have been appropriate. You know, given the pace and intensity of the Premier League. I just thought. I thought he was bad all round. Most of the decisions went against Villa and favoured Liverpool. I don't think there's any kind of bias in there whatsoever, despite, tongue-in-cheek comments earlier about Liverpool having 12 players, whatever. I don't think there's big club bias in there. I just think
that always happens, though. It always feels like anyone that we play, if it's Man United, Liverpool, Man City, or whatever, we'll get these easy decisions where they can just give us a quick free kick in our own half where it's meaningless. And at the other end, we get nothing. And everything goes Liverpool's way. And all those little ones, like you said there, about giving your nan a VR headset, and I'll reply to your tweet saying, at least if she guessed every decision, she might guess Villa sometimes. The things go out for a throw, and you can just look at it and they don't know which way to give it. And they just go, I'll just give it Liverpool. Or
I
just
think
give it Man United.
Subs gave a throw in the first half because he pointed and the referee and the lino were delaying making a decision and they just went with him. I think the frustrating thing about it was that it was a game where I'm not saying that John Moss should run the game in Villa's favour either, but it was a game where Villa needed to kind of build that pressure and build that momentum and almost kind of, swarm forward in waves. And some of the niggly, stupid free kicks that were given took Villa's momentum away. And yet, I mean, there was one, I think it was it when Coutinho got done? Midway inside their half towards the Witten stand, and he kind of waved an advantage where the advantage was that whoever had got possession, whoever had got the ball for us, had been swarmed on by about 6 Liverpool players. You're thinking, well, what kind of advantage is that? And some of the times he was happy to kind of let some of the time wasting go because you almost thought it was going to get him a breather. I don't know. I just think that the Premier League, we can all believe the hype of the Premier League and best league in the world and all this kind of thing. But I think it owes itself a better standard than that, really.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't think it was just Villa fans having a whinge, which we're inclined to do. From some of the things I've seen from neutrals who were watching the game on the telly, they were scratching their heads thinking, what has he seen there? What has he seen? So, Villa Park made his feelings known towards him. I'm not sure he'd have even noticed the chants and the boos, to be honest. But yeah, good luck with your retirement, Mr. Moss.
I was a big fan of Stand Up If You Hate John Moss. That was quite a good one. I don't think I've seen that at Villa Park before. Joanne Spears says it spoilt the atmosphere and the flow of the game. I agree with half of that. It spoiled the flow of the game. I think things like that help the atmosphere. We've said a few
I
times
agree.
with the Schmeichel thing at Leicester, it kind of galvanises us all to feel like we've been wronged and we want to kind of, it's us against you kind of thing. I think it helps the atmosphere, stuff like that, because it gives you something to at least get going about.
Yeah, I agree.
The atmosphere was good generally, though, especially after the first goal. Then Liverpool scored, and they break into Liverpool or some dull chant that we outsang them, I think. And I thought, like even that we've just conceded, and we're still going for it, and it felt good all night. But I agree. I think when those things happen and you feel like you've had a bit of injustice, it brings everyone together, I think.
Yeah, it's good to have a common enemy. I know the opposition are normally the common enemy, but and a kind of villain of the piece, if you like. I thought Liverpool fans were really, really nervous and panicky. I didn't think they were that great. Obviously, when they scored the second goal, they burst into life, didn't they? And made a bit of a racket then. But I thought you could sense the nerves amongst them, and they were a bit flat. But again, when they did try and strike up a chant, all four stands of Villa Park, found their voice, didn't they, and tried to kind of shout them down, basically.
There's a comment here from Jake Denver, which takes us into our next talking point perfectly. He says, can you discuss Dougie in the number 8? Thought he played really well in a more natural position. So we'll kind of weave into this with team news. Obviously, Nakamba comes in for his first start since Anfield, I think it was, in holding midfield. Douglas Luiz playing a bit further forward with McGinn, and Coutinho in for Buendia, which we'll talk about that separately, I suppose. Let's start with Luiz then, as Jake asked. A game of not two halves quite, but two positions. I thought he was very good in number 8, bursting forward. Obviously, he's furthest forward for the goal in the first 3 minutes. There was another chance, I think, after Liverpool equalised, where he found himself in the box. I don't think it came to him, but I thought, what's Douglas Luiz doing that far forward? And he was on the ball. I thought he kind of didn't dictate play, so to speak, but was involved with stuff and looked much better. And then the change for Nakamba, who Gerrard said he gave everything, and I expected wouldn't play the full 90, but I'm not sure the decision to bring Chukwuemeka on was quite right, because Douglas Luiz has then got to go back and fill in at holding midfield. And I think it was Michael Beale said, Dougie, sit back or sit in or something like that. And he kind of looked at him and went, and I almost like put his head down as if to think, I don't want to do that. I don't fancy that. And I kind of thought his game was totally different then. He went to number 6 and he didn't look half as good. I don't get it, because it's like 10 yards further back. I know you can't burst forward as much, but surely you can still be as composed as you were in the first 60 minutes. But yeah, what do you make of Dougie?
I think it's a really, really interesting one, because I think there's a really, really good player in there. And I would hate to see him go on and prove that somewhere else, because we've not really maximised what he's capable of. I thought he was a different player with the shackles off a little bit, to be honest. Technically, we know, it's a bit of a cliche, but we know a Brazilian midfielder is gonna have a little bit of flair about him. Sometimes when he's playing in a deeper role, I think might be harsh, but I think he can just switch off just momentarily, and as he got that discipline to really play that role and sacrifice himself for the team, I suppose, is the job that you have to do in there. It's interesting because I think Nakamba was cramping up, I think.
He was always going to come off. I thought Nakamba was good, incidentally. I don't think it was an amazing performance. I think he does what he is good at, breaking up the play, he is good at, but there was a few times where he had to move it on after winning the ball back and gave it away.
It's very marvellous.
He's done the hard work and won it back, and then you've given it straight back to him.
That was a very Nakamba performance. That's why Nakamba's in a team that's halfway down the Premier League rather than the top 6 of the Premier League. Great at winning the ball back, but he has so much practice because he keeps giving it away. I thought he did good in terms of the intensity and breaking things up. Yeah. He did look to me as if he was kind of cramping up. I don't know whether it was his hamstring or his calf. I can't remember, but he looked like he was, struggling a little bit when he came off. I suppose the decision then is, if you try and put somebody in, if you try and put a defensive midfielder in there, who are we talking? Tim
Chambers.
Yeah,
Chambers
I
did it
suppose
against
that
Norwich, didn't they? Burnley.
would have been the one, I suppose, because otherwise, what's happened is you're changing two positions.
Yeah, that's literally the thing I was about to say. I noted it down before. It's not just a substitution that changes the one position. You're affecting Douglas Luiz's game as well by dropping him back, and that's no slight on Carney either. I thought Carney was okay in spells as well. I thought he did all right with carrying the ball as a number 8. But I think if Luiz stays further forward with McGinn, who I think McGinn had a great game, but has still got the energy. I don't think Chambers is necessarily a defensive midfielder, really. I don't think he was that special against Burnley, but it keeps the system as it was. And I think that's more important than anything.
I mean, the reason that Gerrard has put Dougie back there is because he wants an experienced player he can trust, I think. I think that's why he's not put Tim. I forgot how to pronounce his surname, so I'm not going to...
Irabunam.
That's the fella. But yeah, Chambers would have been the obvious one for me, because you could have kept Dougie doing what Dougie was doing, and you'd have had that layer of protection with, effectively, it might have been a third centre half who was just playing a little bit further forward. But, and I'm not blaming Gerrard's substitution for this. It was Carney and Douglas Luiz who gave the. I think it was a loose pass from Chukwuemeka, to be honest. But I think Luiz could have reacted better and could have cleared out the man and the ball to make sure that Villa weren't in danger there. But Liverpool, bang, bang, bang. It's in the, it's in the net in a matter of moments, and that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, just a bit of clinical finishing. There was, again, kind of going all over the place, but the chances Ings had, me and my dad were sat there going, if that's Salah or Jota or Mane or Diaz or whoever, they score that and the game's put to bed. And I mean, I don't know what you do really, because Danny Ings on paper is this clinical finisher that scores goals, but he gets in these positions and didn't take them last night. But I suppose that's football, isn't it? They don't always go in.
Let's go through their goals first.
Come on, then.
Dan. The first goal, I don't think. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is obviously, God, it's no surprise, is it? He's one of the best in terms of delivery and assists. I don't think his free kick for the goal was particularly good, to be honest. I'm still not sure what Mings was trying to do, whether he was trying to control it or just get any contact on it. It obviously got stuck under his foot, and they were just sharper. Every moment of play after Mings failed to clear the ball, I think there's a couple of saves from Martinez in there. They just reacted quicker every single time, and I thought it was a really, really cheap goal to give away at a time when Villa could have really turned the screw a little bit, having taken the lead. And then that second goal, obviously, we've given the ball away just inside our own half, and it's broken quickly to Diaz. And I think, I've heard people dig Mings out for the first goal and dig him out for the second goal. I think Mings is so aware of how good Diaz is that he's scared of getting too close because he doesn't want to foul him. And by doing that, he allows the cross to come over far too easily. And then Mane, who's what?
It's a great header, isn't it?
5'8", 9". He's taller than that. He's got the freedom of the 6-yard box. The ball goes behind him, doesn't it? And he's still going to just.
It's a great header.
And nod it in bottom corner without having to break his stride. So I think there were lapses. I think there were really costly defensive lapses. But I think Villa across the 90 minutes were so good or so competitive that I think it's really, really cruel to dig them out too much over the goals that they conceded.
I was watching them back then, which I've never done before, weirdly. Seeing as I've got the benefit of opening another tab and watching things as we're talking, I was watching both the goals back, and as much as that is a good header from Mane, both goals are quite sloppy, really, in terms of our defending. Like, if Mings closes that cross down, that never happens. And the first goal is, I want to say, a calamity of errors. It isn't really. Mings really should just put his foot through that and get rid of it. He's probably not trying to control it there, because that would be mental. I think he's tried to get something on it and mess it up. But yeah, every Liverpool player reacts quicker in that box for the first goal. And Martinez makes a decent save, to be fair, and it kind of bobbles through to Matip, I think, and he puts it in, and not really much you can do about that. It's timings as well, isn't it? I think if they'll hold on to being 1-0 up for a little bit longer as well, that kind of changes the way the atmosphere is. The fact Liverpool get back into it so soon as well. yeah, just feels a little bit like a missed opportunity that it's Villa making their own kind of bad luck again.
Yeah, you need to be better, don't you? You know, against any team in the Premier League, especially a Liverpool team who always find a way, or pretty much always find a way to win. You can't give them, you know, you can't have any lapses really, because they'll punish you. But that was the tale of the game, wasn't it? You know, Ings, I think the header was probably his best chance in the first half, because he rises early. It's a good delivery. I think was it McGinn from a short corner? Was it that one?
McGinn did put a good cross in for somebody at some point, but I don't know if it was that one or not.
That one. And the goal's gaping, to be honest, and he's got to bury that. But these other opportunities, you know, there's the one, he obviously sticks the one in the net that's offside. Was that quite offside? Was that offside by a distance, by the way? I've not seen that back.
Yeah, the Ings one, I've not seen it back. At the time, obviously, I'm nowhere near being level with it, so I don't know. But you know, you just assume he's onside just because you want to have, you know, favour the Villa man. But there was a very quick VAR check of like 10 seconds, I think. Yeah. So you would assume it was pretty clear.
I think I was the only one in the stadium still celebrating. Then
there's nothing worse than that feeling of celebrating a goal and going mental, and then you see the offside flag go up. Oh, I went big for that goal, and then you feel like an idiot straight away.
Likewise. But you know, the chance that he's had, where I think it's the other one was offside as well, wasn't it? Where he tries to cut back inside the defender and can't get his shot away. And then there's the one where I can't remember who slid him through. It might have been Watkins who slid him through. And he just takes a bad touch, and Alisson's on him before he can get a shot away. And those are big moments. You know, there's another one, Coutinho, second half, who manages to get away from Van Dijk, but tries to go past him again, and then runs out of steam and doesn't get a shot away. And it's moments like that where, you know, you've got to punish the opposition. It surprised me how often we did get behind them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is a credit to some of our approach play. Thought Buendia looked decent when he came on as well, and I don't know. I naively thought at half time that we'd get a draw out of it, but probably knew in my heart of hearts that we wouldn't.
I know we're not allowed to share match footage because we don't have the rights. Are we allowed to share screenshots of like stills of games or not?
I don't know, Matt. Should we not?
Yeah, we'll err on the side of caution not. But Ings was pretty clearly offside for that chance that he buried. So, yeah, that's fair enough. I expected it, given how quick it was for them to check it. But at first, I was thinking, typical. Like, I only looked at it for 10 seconds because it's Villa and they want to favour Liverpool. But, yeah, he's clearly offside. So, that's the end of that. Yeah, what else do we want to talk about? Where's my notes? Nothing, really. I think we pretty much covered the actual game in terms of everything that happened. Chuckmaker coming on, I suppose. Anything that you spotted from him?
Yeah, I suppose that, you know, he's fallen back into favour, hasn't he? In the last couple
does that mean that the contract's on the way, do you think?
What do we read into that? Is it a final last gasp attempt to keep him? I'm not sure Gerrard would do that. I think Gerrard must have been given some, might be wrong, must have been given some encouragement to get him involved. I'd like to see more of him, to be honest, because I think he's on the cusp of showing what he can do, but, you know, hasn't really. I know he scored, didn't he, on his debut at the back end of last season, but hasn't really stamped his mark from the bench yet, as far as I can see. You might beg to differ. You might say, well, actually, Matt, what about that moment and that moment? I'm still waiting to see a little bit more of him. So I do hope we're getting signed up. I hope he realises he's onto a good thing here. You know, part of a team that's going places, going to have exciting new signings, but also a manager who wants to reward, you know, the brightest kids in the group. So I hope it is a sign. Probably reading too much into it, and he'll, you know, end up at Dortmund or Bayer Leverkusen or something in the next 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. But that's the optimistic part of me thinks that maybe there has been a little bit of a kind of change there. So we'll see in that sense. Obviously, there's been rumours circulating from Spain that, you know, people saying we can potentially getting Coutinho for less than the cost of Ross McCormack and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? If we can pull that deal off, not only because we've got the little magician within our ranks, but also the pulling power that having him and Gerrard there, can bring. I'm sure wages and club prospects will be the deciding vote for targets that are wanted by several clubs. But I don't think it helps having a manager and a player with their reputations to sweeten the deal.
Yeah, I think the reported fee of 33 million for Coutinho now being 15 million or something like that, 17 million pounds, euros, whatever it is. You pretty much get in. I don't know what the maths is on this, but you feel like that transfer fee and his wages is probably less than 33 million. I don't know what the actual figures are, but I
wouldn't want to guess, but it sounds like
it's a good deal.
It sounds like a very good deal, and I think I'm right in saying Coutinho. I think he's 29, turns 30, perhaps in the next couple of weeks. So theoretically, he's still at a very good age because, I'm not saying he's a slouch, but he's not a player who relies massively on pace. He relies on the quickness of thinking in his head and the magic in his boots. So I think that represents a really kind of exciting start to Aston Villa's summer spending potentially.
Yeah, after the Burnley game, and obviously Buendia played very well, I spoke to Ash and we spoke about the Coutinho thing. I think Gerrard was asked, do you need Coutinho now? And he said, yeah, I want both Buendia and Coutinho. And I clipped that out as a social highlight and I was tweeting it and I wrote out, do Villa actually need Coutinho? And as I was typing it, I thought, what am I saying here? Like, the club of Aston Villa's ambitions of trying to break into at least the top half and then European football. In what world are we in a position to say, Philip Coutinho? No, we don't fancy that. He's obviously worth signing, isn't he? Especially for this kind of cut price that it's all less than we expected.
Yeah, and listen, it's about Gerrard and his coach's man management for me of Buendia because, like I said about Dougie earlier, I would hate Buendia to leave Villa without fully flourishing and us seeing the full value of his potential. Buendia early in the season was a different beast from the one now, and this is not a criticism of Dean Smith. I think Buendia, when he was taken off, he was in a bit of a strop and he, struggled to contain his emotions and stuff like that. I think that was more frustration with himself for not hitting that consistent level. We only see glimpses, don't we, of what Villa want to show us from training footage or the bits that we see on the television or on the touchline and stuff like that. But I think it might be a massive assumption to make. He seems to be a more rounded individual now. And I think somebody's had a word and said, you are really important to us, but this is a squad game. We want to be a big Premier League force. So we need a squad full of talented players. You're going to get your opportunity. Please believe in what we're doing. And when you're on, when the team news was announced last night, there was a lot of people, what's he done? Buendia, no Buendia. He absolutely tore it up on Saturday at Burnley. And I can understand it. I do think Gerrard rested Coutinho.
Yeah, he said as much.
With a view to last night. But that's the key to me. How do you keep, and sort of harking back in the past again, and I keep likening this to the Martin O'Neill era. Martin O'Neill was able to sign lots of players and build a squad, but was only able to utilise perhaps 14 of them, which in 1981 would have been great. In 2009 wasn't so great. I think Gerrard knows he needs the squad. The challenge then is not only to get the quality of the squad, but to get players with an elite mentality who understand the project, whether they're playing every week or whether they're pieces around the edge of that. Not easy. It's not an easy challenge for a manager. But I hope that he's able to do that. I hope he's able to sign Coutinho and keep Buendia really, really engaged in what he's trying to do.
Do you think there's a case to suggest that the position they play at number 10, it makes it easier to switch them in and out, that Coutinho plays 2 or 3, doesn't do much, so when Buendia comes in and plays a couple and then Coutinho back and forth, whereas if this was a second choice centre-back we were talking about, you don't want to keep changing your back line every couple of weeks. Is it easier to rotate them both because they play this kind of floaty, creative position?
Possibly. I think on a similar theme, I just think having a ready-made substitute in that role who can influence a game if you're chasing a goal and you're chasing it with a bit of magic and you need some fresh legs and some fresh thinking. I think that's a really, really nice luxury to have as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, yeah, why wouldn't we go forward with both of them? You know, and again, harking back to Steve Bruce years or whatever, Coutinho and Buendia. Do you know what I mean? It's pinch yourself territory, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Just want to go back to the youngsters in midfield, Timo Rabunum, Jacob Ramsey, Chuckmaker. I had to close my eyes to think there. It's been a long day. I don't know how good those three are going to be, what their ceilings are, and I don't know where Villa are trying to get to. You know, if they sign, just a name from last summer, if they sign James Ward-Prowse, for example, for 40 million, that kind of puts any pathway for one of those three out of the side, because you play the big man that's trying to get you into Europe now. You haven't got time to develop two 18-year-olds at the same time. Jake Ramsey's 20, I think. But the idea of having three homegrown midfielders playing in there together, you've got two number 8s and a number 6 there between the three of them, who could, in theory, if they are going to be top level players eventually, that you do kind of blood them together and hope that they stick around, and that's Villa's midfield for 6, 7, 8 years to get us into the next level. That's a as a player, I would think that's quite a nice opportunity to have. So sign a contract.
Yeah, listen, it's a lovely prospect, and I've said this before. We had a Jack Grealish-sized gap in our hearts to fill in terms of somebody coming through the academy, kind of one of our own. And Ramsey's taken that and properly run with it, hasn't he? This year, nobody could have predicted quite what he's gone on to achieve this year. The academy's there to produce players for Aston Villa's first team. That's its ultimate aim. Now, that's a hard enough gig when Villa are halfway down the Championship to get players who are good enough to make a mark at that. It's a harder gig when Villa are just in the Premier League and trying to stay. The more Villa rise, that's a big ask. If Villa want to be a top 6 club, to think that you can produce top 6 players is a really, really, really big ask. I think we potentially have in Jacob Ramsey, and perhaps I'm getting overhyped about him too soon, but I think he's shown that he's got the attributes to at least challenge to be involved in that kind of Villa mission for the top 6. We need a bigger body of evidence before we see what Tim and Carney can do, really, for me. But again, we've got a manager who this season has been prepared to give them a go. So yeah, I agree. Sign the contract and then see what the next 2 or 3 years brings in terms of opportunities. And then, if you can't make your mark, you will still have probably had X amount of Premier League appearances under your belt to put on your CV and, make you quite saleable to somebody else.
Well, yeah, if they're not good enough to get in there, because Villa are spending 30, 40, 50 million pound on players in their position, if we can sell on these academy prospects for 2025, that keeps the cycle going, doesn't it? One last kind of transfer rumour, I guess, I wanted to touch on before we leave is the Ollie Watkins and West Ham thing, because there's been a few comments about it. I think it came from The Guardian originally, and there was a quote in there about David Moyes being desperate to sign him or something like that. And I kind of thought, desperate is the operative word there. If you're willing to chuck 50 million at it, which is the fee Villa would reportedly ask for, according to this article. Would you take 50 million for Ollie Watkins, or is he someone that you want to hold on to?
Difficult one, isn't it? 50 million. What does 50 million? I was going to say, what does 50 million buy you in the market now? Ollie Watkins, clearly. It's a really difficult one. I probably would take 50 million for him, but I don't want to. I'm in no rush to see Ollie Watkins go out the door, because I think there's a player with lots and lots of potential. I still think he's a bit ragged around the edges, but I think there's a player with real potential in there, and also 50 million. I don't know. It gives you. Listen, it's not a bad headache, but it gives you another headache, because I think Ollie Watkins is still at a good age. It's still has got the attitude to want to work and to improve. I think it will give us a very good idea of the speed at which Villa want to work this summer, if they do sell Ollie Watkins for a big sum and probably reinvest it in somebody more established but with less less time left in his career, less of a sell-on value potentially. I don't know. I would sell him for 50 million, but you know, I probably wouldn't sell him for 40 million. Do you know what I mean? It's
signing for what 33 with him, all the bonuses and that kind of stuff. He's scored 10 goals this season, 14 last, and he's an England international now. So 40 million is the least of his value. And then if Villa think that he's so important, they want 50, 55, 60, and someone's willing to pay that, which is another matter. I think, like you say, it gives you another headache. So I'm not sure striker is a position we need to be focusing on this summer. I don't think. Now Ings and Watkins are kind of working together. Archer's coming back, hopefully next season, to be the kind of third choice, I guess. And if an offer comes in that's too good to turn down, that changes things. But I won't be actively trying to sell Watkins or Ings, to be honest.
No, I think, listen, people have spoken about Suarez in the past and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, sell Watkins for 50 million and sign Suarez. I mean,
well, this is the thing, and you're placing your eggs in one basket there for me, and I'm thinking, I think Villa. I don't know. Villa are a different beast to the one a few years ago, but we tried this at a lesser level in the Championship of, just spending money on big names and not building anything sustainable. I think Villa have got a real responsibility to try and add those extra bits of star quality that can kick us on quickly, but also think, what do we want to be in 3 or 4 years' time? And so I think there's a real balancing act there.
I think Ings is slightly different because of his age. If you get an offer for him that's half decent, you think, well, he's 30. He's only scored 7 or 8 goals this season. That's probably worth doing. But like I just said, I think Watkins has been in and around the England squad. He's 26. He scored double figures for back-to-back seasons now. There's still another 3-4 seasons out of him to hopefully improve and score 15 to 20 each year. So, yeah, it'd have to be a massive offer to sell, and it gives you this headache that I don't necessarily think you need to solve this summer, because you need a holding midfielder. You maybe need a number 8. You probably need a centre-half. You need backup fullbacks. So, yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to go and think, right now, who do we need to play up front? And I don't know who you go for either. I think that's pretty much it. There's one thing I wanted to do with you, which was a little bit of nonsense. I saw a viral tweet yesterday off the back of the Haaland Man City deal of Man City fans kind of questioning how many goals they would score in this Man City side, going, Haaland's going to score 50 goals with the chances we're creating, all this. So no one cares about Man City and Haaland. So let's relate this back to Villa. Let's say Ollie Watkins is sold this summer and Villa come to you and go, Matt Kendrick, we want you to play up front for us next season. You can play 38 games every single minute. We won't bring you off regardless of your form. How many goals do you reckon you've scored for Villa over the course of a season?
Can I have penalties?
I don't know. Give me an answer with and without.
Oh, without 0. With, depends how many penalties.
0.
I made my footballing comeback on Sunday night because I've my knees are creaking a little bit, and I've not been able to play. I play 5-a-side on a Sunday night with some fellow veterans, and I managed to fall over thin air. I did score an absolute banger, to be honest, but I managed to fall over thin air and get one of those kind of AstroTurf carpet burns.
Oh yeah.
And I won't show you now, but it is disgusting. And because I work from home, I've not had to wear trousers. This was Sunday night. I've not had to wear any trousers until last night when I went to the Villa and I put some jeans on. And my wife, bless her, had to wrap my little knee up in bandage and put some plasters on to keep it in place. Oh mate, between you and me, I've got such hairy knees that I came back. I don't want anybody else.
It's just between you and me. Okay.
Yeah, I've got such hairy knees that I came back and tried to pull the plaster off, and I was nearly in tears. I had to get some little scissors to cut my hairs and my plaster off. But back to the thing. I have played at Villa Park a couple of times in my younger days and never scored. I've knocked the ball in the net in the warm up. I don't know. I'd like to think I'd get one. I'd like to get a sympathy goal.
A proper goal, not a penalty, you mean?
Yeah. I'll probably score a banger from 35 yards, I'd have thought. I don't know who the shortest goalie is in the league. How about you?
0. I'd be dead
Really?
after about 10 minutes. I mean, I'd have to get my fitness levels way up to even finish 90 minutes. But I mean, the only thing I thought of as a way around getting an answer for this is, when Tyrone Mings got Ezri Constance's goal just because it hit him against Watford, I might get one of them given to me. Yeah. That Coutinho blasts one in from the edge of the area and it just hits my back or something, and they give it to me instead. So maybe one via that route. But
probably best route would be, the Albert Adoma against Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, even that, unless the goalkeeper moved out of the way. I'd probably
find myself offside or something like that.
I'd still wouldn't back myself. If I was running through on goal and I was given the chance to shoot against a goalkeeper, there's no chance. No chance I'd score. So I'm going to say 0 and be modest about it. But this tweet I saw yesterday with the Man City fans, like, I reckon I could get 10 or 15. It's like some professional footballers aren't even scored. Grealish, for example, has scored a couple of goals all season. Yeah. Like, I don't know where these people come from, but same question to the comments if anyone wants to give an answer as well. See how many arrogant people think they could get 10 goals with Villa. I mean, Danny Ings has only got 7, so let's still calm down a little bit. Do you want to plug that 1982 newspaper special thing before we go?
Yeah, weren't you going to stick that little video on the end or not? Or...
Yeah, I can do it now if you want.
Yeah, do that then. Just briefly, we've got we produced, because we love living in the past, we've produced a 40th year anniversary special of Villa winning the European Cup in 1982. Just play the thing because I'm going to say the same detail anyway.
Exactly, yeah, I was going to say, just let me play it.
40 years ago, blimey. To mark the milestone anniversary of Aston Villa's glorious European Cup triumph, we've produced a brilliant souvenir supplement featuring exclusive interviews with the legends of 1982, fan accounts, photographs and the original match reports. It's a must-have memento for Villa fans. The 64-page supplement is available in newsagents in and around the Birmingham area, where you can order it for delivery via our online shop. It costs £2.50 and there's also a postage fee if you order online. Up the Villa!
I'm not going to get any voiceover work, am I, on the back of that?
So there it is. I'll put the link to the online shop in the comments on the Facebook Live and the YouTube. It's good, isn't it? They've put it together really nicely. There's some guy called Matt Kendrick who's written a few pieces as well, which are half decent, I would say. 6 out of 10.
Dusted off the quill. So yeah, I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, it's good. It is nice. I took it round to my parents yesterday and showed my dad, and I'll hand it to him. He's like, "Oh, is this for me?" And I was like, "Well, I've paid for it." So,
God, you're so tight.
Right, that's harsh.
Hey, before
question, go on. No, that's all right. You do yours.
No, I was just going to say before we go, I wanted to apologise to my son's school teachers today because we didn't get back till after midnight because I've got to drop off one of his mates in Tividale and my nephews in Longbridge and that kind of thing. And we went on a late night search for a Mackie D's.
Oh.
We tried the one at Amber Tavern, you know where that is, on the Wolverhampton Road. We tried the one at Birchley Island, by Junction 2 of the M5.
Are they closed then, you mean?
Yeah, they were all closing just as we were getting there. It was like agonising. Then we tried the one at Halsowing, closed, and we just got in. Do you know the one at Cradley, Collie Gate, towards on the way to Starbridge?
Yeah.
Just got that just as the lights were going off, and it was like a really heroic. If you'd have been there, Dan, I'd like to film the kind of heroic montage. But yes, we didn't get back till late, so my son has turned up to school today with his belly full, but probably not that attentive, really. So sorry.
What did you have?
Just the standard Big Mac. I had Big Mac, large fries.
At midnight?
Yeah, and I didn't even have Diet Coke. I had Coke, and I come back, and I was that knackered that I put a little bit of rum in my Coke, in my Mackie D's Coke as well. So,
bloody hell.
There you have it. And then I'm getting weighed again on Friday for Slimming World. So
I feel very inadequate with my 2 Weetabix. The one I was going to mention, there's a question from Ian Robinson. He says, can you do more podcast interviews with ex-players, Matt? Always enjoy watching them. It's time to start thinking about it, isn't it? The season ends, well, it'll be ended within the next 2 weeks, and we've got a whole summer of content to fill. So they are things that we do want to do more often, but it doesn't want to sound they're hard to organise, aren't they?
Yeah, we'll go through the contacts book, and there's a few that I've got on my wish list that I want us to crack on with. So we'll, me and Dan will have a planning meeting in the next couple of weeks, and we'll try and bring you some of those. Yeah, thanks for the kind words there.
Yeah. What we will do to end this podcast, like we always do, is the plug in the 1982 trailer. You're going to hear from us a lot about this in the next few weeks. Obviously, we filmed it end of March, I think it was, posted it a few weeks ago. The anniversary for that will be in the next 2 weeks. I think it might be 2 weeks today, in fact, of us winning the European Cup.
2 weeks tomorrow, mate.
2 weeks tomorrow. There we go. So I'm going to end this podcast with the trailer for that, so you can go on to the channel and watch the full episode. It's an hour-long chat with Alan Evans, Tony Morley, Dennis Mortimer, and Sid Cowans. I almost said Tony Mortimer then. I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? So, Matt, thanks for your time. Thanks for the comments for tuning as always. Here's the trailer, and we'll catch you again on Saturday.
They had the trophy on the pitch, and they were throwing it around to each other. I just felt that day
angry.
I just felt we're going to take this off you next season.
The work rate from that team was unbelievable.
Is that including me, Shuri?
That's including everybody.
That's making up for you, sure.
But I think he was a type of manager who'd quite happily win every game 1-0, didn't he?
Yes.
It's like you didn't want to win 4-3 or 5-4. No. It wasn't like that. You give nothing away.
Tony didn't come in and give any ultimatums or anything like that. He was, we all knew Tony anyway, but Tony didn't need to say anything to us. He just needed to sort of be in charge of us. I felt we were in charge of ourselves. Yeah. Our destiny was in our hands. It wasn't in a new manager coming in and taking over. And
I walked over to him, sat down next to him, and he turned around and he went, "You were lucky."
Did you mean to hit the post with the shot? From the yard out. And
did you still wind him up about that and coming up?
No, we don't wind him up. No, he scored the goal. Listen, none of us care. God, I wish I had scored it.
The best thing about it was, as you were speaking earlier, is that team is the best team the club have ever had and never will have.
I mean, I just think to myself, being captain, there's no way I could have gone up with a Bayern shirt on. I just knew I couldn't do that.
And if you can go through a whole season and trust in each other, in fact 2 seasons really, and trusting each other wholeheartedly, that is fantastic. We never had that again after the European Cup final.
The team of 80, 81, 82, are true legends in Aston Villa folklore. And for me, that just makes us, we're history. And I love that.